What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Welcome back to Love and Rice podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to Love and Rice, make sure you guys subscribe and like and comment all of our podcasts that's running on all the platforms. We're talking about Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio. I believe if you guys used to listen to Google Podcasts, they are now on YouTube Music. We're also on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure you guys follow us and subscribe. All right, so on today's episode, I essentially want to talk about money in a relationship. Okay, so parents always tell their daughters, I don't know if your parents told you this, but they always say, find a partner who's making good money, someone who's got some success in their life. So my goal for this episode is to figure out, do we listen to our parents or do we debunk this stereotype here?
I mean, I feel like our parents have always told us, always find a partner who is financially stable because they've been through that whole lifestyle of not having money and having to work extra hard just to be able to be financially stable. And I think coming to the US and bringing us here, they wanted to set us up for success, right? So I feel like that's something that they've always told us, like always find someone that is not struggling in life, who has a good family, who has had a good upbringing, with some special cases, but for the most part it's always that stability.
So I want to talk about when you're in the very beginning of a relationship in your young 20s, no one really has that much money, right? So it's hard to find someone with money. And then it's like, at what point are you doing it for the wrong thing, or, like becoming a gold digger and stuff like that? It's like, also, when our parents first came to America, they both struggled, right?
Right.
And so now in today's world, people are still struggling, but in a positive way, right? They have to live within their means. They have to struggle because they know what they want for their dreams in becoming an entrepreneur and stuff like that. So it's like, how do you know? Because I'm sure your parents told you, yes, find a guy who makes a lot of money for you, right? Like,
I feel like the goal is always to find, I think for them, they always want you to have a better life. So the goal is always find someone who makes good money, right? So it's not necessarily of like, oh, well, this has to be the mark. Like, make sure that they're at least making this much money a year or something to be able to have a good life. But I think it's just more of making sure that they're not struggling in a sense where if they're already struggling on their own, if you get into a relationship with them, they're struggling, their family's struggling. Isn't it going to be that much harder when there's two of you?
I do want to talk about what it's like in the beginning of the relationship when you're just dating someone, and then how it is when you're actually serious with someone and thinking about family and marriage. And for me as a man, I've kind of been through, right? I've been through the broke phase. I've been through trying to make it phase. And now I'm at the phase where I'm good, right? So I've experienced those eras in my relationships, and I can share with you guys how life has been during those times. And I'm sure you have too. Have you ever dated a broke man?
A lot.
Yeah, and
many.
Right. And like, what's the experience for you dating a broke man? And like, why? Why did you date the person?
So, because when you're younger, right, like what you're saying, you're dating to experience things and to go through this journey. And a lot of the time when you're younger, you're kind of inexperienced and you're just thinking like, oh, but I love this person.
Right. Nothing is about money at that time because no one has money at that young.
And then you're also like, oh, but this struggle is what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be this hard and we're fighting this hard for each other. So like, this is how it is, and it's meant to be this way, right? It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet. Like they had so many struggles and differences, and it got to the point where they ended up like dying for each other because like they felt like that's what love was supposed to be like. And I feel like that's what we think about like when we're younger.
What attracted you to a guy in your early 20s? Because like we're saying right now, no one thinks about money. No one's gold digging, right? Like, how do you find a good person and just someone that you think is cool for now.
Well, I think when you're younger, you don't have as many responsibilities, no bills to take care of.
You do have bills. You're
Well,
talking about
but
people who live at home still.
yeah, well, I think it's still very minor, and maybe it's different for girls because when we're younger, our parents encourage us to stay home because they want to know our whereabouts, and they're like. Maybe that's the reason why they're like, oh, we'll take care of you and we'll provide for you. Just stay home and don't depend on a guy and get too independent and go through the struggles so early on in
Look,
life.
here's some advice I have. Okay, when in your early 20s, everyone still lives with their parents, which is totally fine. But I think what you want to look for, and especially if you're a lady and you're looking for a guy, okay, um, what is the guy doing? So if he's living at home, is he saving up to do something bigger for his future? Like why does he not have money right now, or does he, and he's just saving? Like, what is he doing at that time, or is he just taking advantage, living with his parents, and there are no responsibilities, just going out to party all the time, spending money like that on things that's not towards the future
I
you
think
know
at that age and when you're barely dating, you're just tapping into so many different new things. And I feel like at that time, you're thinking more about like, oh, I just want to spend all day every day with this person. I don't care what we do. And that's when money isn't an issue because like you could be home all day with each other, just in
yeah
the room hanging out, watching TV, talking, and that's enough.
yeah
So I feel like that's why a lot of people don't really think about the financials at that point. Like maybe for the guys, they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm saving money for like being able to move out and take care of the girl and stuff like that. But for girls, we're just like, oh, we just want to be able to spend time. And I think that's when we might fall for the wrong guys because they can just be at home for whatever reason.
And I don't think that's a fault that we have. It's because our parents tell us, find someone good, find a good husband, find a good wife. So initially, when you first start dating someone, you're literally trying to figure out this foundation and seeing if it works. You're not even thinking about money yet, right? They're just like,
Yeah.
find someone good,
I think you're
right?
just in the moment and you're just trying to spend time or as much as possible with the other person.
So when are you thinking about the financials? You know what I mean? Like, are you even thinking about it at that time?
I
You're
think
not, right?
I think to a certain extent, but it
It,
also depends on the lifestyle because when you're younger, you don't really care about going out as much, or if you're going out to eat, you don't care if you're going to eat fast food and other things to save money
oh,
because
that's so crazy.
right?
So hearing that from a girl's perspective, for me as a man, I'm thinking when I don't have money during that phase of my life, I'm working hard. I do have a 9 to 5 or a night job. And what I'm thinking is I'm trying to make money and have take a girl out on a date and do things like that. I'm trying to spend money on the girl, so I got to make money, but I'm not really thinking about what's after that, the future and building. I'm just thinking, damn, I need to make some money tonight so we can go to the movies, have a nice dinner. I'm always thinking about where to take the girl for a nice dinner, not fast food.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like experience is more important than money
Exactly.
when
Well,
you're
that's
young.
what you're saying though. Experience. For me, the experience is doing something nice, right? A
Yeah.
nice date.
Yeah, and I think it makes you appreciate those moments more because it's kind of like you're so okay with having these cheap meals and stuff all the time just because you just want to hang out, right? But then when you actually get to do something nice, you're like, oh, this is cool. Like this is a splurge. Like this is a special occasion, you know?
And what do you think when that happens? Do you think the guy is wasting money on you, or are you like, well, maybe he has money?
I don't know. I think it just depends on how they are with it, like where they choose to go, how much money they try to spend. But it's not even like how it's not the expectation of how much they're spending on the date. It's more so of like the reason of wanting to do it. So if they're like,
Mm.
oh, well, I just want to do it because I want to show off because I have money, then that's kind of a turn off, like for me personally. But if a guy's doing it because they're like, oh, we've been dating for like a month and I want to take you out to a really nice place, like to celebrate us and stuff like that. That I think that's what girls appreciate more of.
That's crazy because normally on the first date is where we want to do the nice thing,
Mm,
not just fast food and movie or movie and late night snack. It's like we actually plan a nice dinner in the hills with a nice view or by
On
the
a first
beach.
date?
Yeah.
That's
And I think maybe that's where things were wrong with our mentality when we were younger. We try to do everything for the girl on the first date. But actually, now with all this experience that we have, it's more of like we should just take it easy on the first date and build up because some girls are not worth the first date.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, what was our first date? Like,
Our first date,
I rem-
I don't remember, man, because we just went into like doing, going to Denny's
yeah,
after
like
work.
our first dates really were like going to Denny's after I was getting off of work and stuff like that. And
What was the first big thing we did?
I don't remember. That
Me
sounds like
neither.
you took people to fancy restaurants on first dates because usually,
Well, you're
if
working all the time, and
true,
and at the time I was working like 7 days a week, so I'm not really going anywhere.
yeah,
And I was at the mentality of during that phase, I was in my mid 20s where I'm like, I'm done being broke and I'm working towards my future. I have an investment right now. I have a business, and I'm so focused on that than trying to splurge on a girl.
well, you know what? So I guess there's this distinct line between like whatever stage of life that you're in, because if we're talking about first dates when you're younger, maybe in your teens to early 20s, then it's kind of like, oh, maybe taking someone to a fancy restaurant for the first date is a bit too strong,
Yeah.
right? Too strong of an approach. But then when you're already older, you're more established, like mid 20s to 30s, like I think it's fine to wine and dine a girl for the first date, like depending on your
Um,
status.
I mean, it's there's so much context to that because spending money on a first date doesn't have to be something crazy.
Right.
Like everything is so expensive. So we're talking about taking you bowling. That's already $100 day.
Mm-hmm.
Going ice skating. That's $100 day. You know what I mean? So like $100 on the first date is a lot of money.
Yeah, so when you really think about it, I feel like it's so important to be with someone who has the same mindset as you when it comes to like financial stability.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking to a person, like you get to know them and you like them as the person that they are and their traits and characteristics. But then when it comes down to it, like in every relationship and almost everything that you do in your relationship, it kind of revolves around talking about money, budgeting, finances, and things like that. So
That's
I
a real
feel,
relationship.
yeah, that's a real relationship. So when you're talking about going on first dates with people, it kind of helps set the tone already. So if a woman is like, "Oh, I want to go to a fancy restaurant. I want you to wine and dine me all the time," then it's up to you to be like, this is the lifestyle that I want. This is how I want to provide for the woman,
So
my partner, whatever it is.
our situation is different. Everyone's situation is always different. And I think the reason why we can't remember like the first big date or where I spent a lot of money on you is because I think from the very beginning we said that I wasn't looking for a girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
and we both weren't looking for a relationship. So we didn't do all that in the beginning. It was just kind of like hang out,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where it was different. So like, for me when I was young and I didn't have much money to spend on a girl, I wouldn't say dating was hard. It was still easy because it would just be about hanging out at my apartment, or my townhome and places that I was renting because all the money was going towards rent and bills at the time. So it was more of just having the girl spend the time at my place. Um,
And
and
some girls might be okay with that and some might not. And that's how you can filter people out already. Because
yeah,
if they're like, well, I don't want to just hang out,
and you know what?
time is money.
Actually, most of the time too, it's when you hang out with the girl at your place, a lot of times it's after everyone gets things done during the day and there is no dinner. So no money is being spent. It's just like, hey, come over and hang out. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're just gonna hang out. So like, I guess it wasn't hard to get girls when I didn't have money. It didn't matter to the girls that I dated because they also didn't have money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the type of people that you're trying to go out with and stuff. But
So, have you ever dated someone who did have money? Because in the guy's perspective, I have never dated a girl with money.
I mean, I feel like I have. And I
Like
don't know.
how different is that in terms of like the dating experience? Did you like it, or was it uncomfortable for you?
I can't remember, but I just feel like, when I did date people who had money, like they weren't the ones who were very obvious with it and who were kind of showing off,
How are they showing off?
kind of like showing off their car,
Mm,
if they had like nice like jewelry or Rolex and fancy things and stuff like that, or it's like trying to wine
damn.
and dine you like in the beginning.
Guys had nice cars and Rolex at that age?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
What?
like
Damn.
some
All right.
people just were born with money and stuff too, right? Like they come from wealth and or whatever it is. But it's just different. Like if it does money was never something that mattered to me when I was dating people, and
Mhm.
maybe that's why I dated a lot of the wrong people. But you can just tell like when they're trying to show off and when they're just doing it for the sake of showing off. But once that happens, I think I just kind of like stray away from it right away. I don't think I even give it a chance because I don't know. It's just very different. Like they don't seem. Some people don't come off as humble when they do
How
stuff like that.
how was it for you dating me in the beginning, where I had this brand new Mercedes with some 22-inch rims, and I had this restaurant business, but I was wearing my restaurant clothes every day, and I wasn't spending money, like how was that for you, seeing all that and experiencing it?
Well, I don't know. I feel like maybe it depends, or maybe it's because of where we both grew up and where we came from. And I felt like, um, even though we weren't spending a lot of money, I think we were both kind of hustling the same at
Yeah.
that time. Like we were both working a lot, and and,
'Cause when I met you, that was the first time I had a nice car. It was
mm,
the first time I had a business. Like I was just, I don't know, things were changing for me during that time, and I wasn't spending on other people.
yeah. So I think that probably came down to my own personal standing. Like for me, I felt like I was doing well for myself because I was hustling on my own. I wasn't depending on anyone. I had my own car. I was taking care of myself and I felt very independent at the time. So for me, I wasn't like, oh, well, I wasn't looking for a relationship either. So I wasn't like, oh, and I usually don't ever look for a relationship to depend on someone to take care of
I
me.
I I think everyone has their own definition of being independent, because everything you said is true except for one part. And for me, I look at every single part about that. Like you said, you're making your own money, right? You're doing your own things, but at the same time, you didn't really have a place to live, and you're staying with me, you know. And when you say independent, I expect the girl to be fully independent and having her own place to live, and being able to do that on her own.
Yeah, but that's kind of like double standards also because if you feel like that's independent, it's kind of like you're expecting this from someone, but you also don't have that either. So it's kind of like, you know what I
But
mean?
I've
But
had it though. I lived on my own since I was 18. By the time I met you, I put my money into a business and decided to live back with my parents to save and do the business.
right.
So that was where I was at that time, right? When I met you, it was just within that year, I just moved back home. And that was talking about from 18 to 25. I just moved back. 18 to 25, I was living on my own and paying all that rent and stuff like that, And now I just finally lived on my with my parents,
Yeah.
So, but you didn't see that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that stuff.
So
Cause I mean, it was kind of weird because I was like, "Oh, he's still living with his parents." Like, okay, sure. But I was dating other people before you
yeah,
who were also living with their parents, and I was staying with my parents if I wasn't with someone.
right.
You
But
know?
you didn't know that for 7 years prior, the entire 7 years, a couple on and offs, but the entire 7 years, I was at my own place. You had no idea.
Yeah, yeah, because that wasn't something that mattered to me at the time because my definition of independence could be completely different from yours. Yours is like a very extreme case where you think like you have to completely be independent. But for me, I feel like I've established so much in being the oldest girl in my family, and having working towards an education. I felt like I was doing it for myself. So
Hmm.
I felt like I was being independent in my own way. Yeah.
So you okay.
So imagine like if I had the same mindset that you had with
Yeah.
you saying like, oh, I don't feel like you're completely independent because you're living at home with your parents,
Right.
then like we probably wouldn't have been dating or we wouldn't be together
Yeah.
because of that.
We both just
You
didn't
know?
really have a place to live on our own.
Yeah.
But okay, so how was it dating someone who did have money and someone who didn't? Were those experiences different for you, and were the feelings different?
So I honestly feel like there was a difference when it came down to the struggle of things because I was in a relationship before you, my longest relationship before you,
Mm-hmm.
and that was probably the hardest relationship.
Why?
Because when I dated this person, his family was struggling already. Like they didn't have money. Or even if like the dad did, like he didn't share that money with the rest of the family. Parents were separated, but they had to live together under the same roof because the mom had nowhere to go. And it also came down to like, oh well, his mom doesn't have a car, so I'm gonna let her borrow mine. It got to the point where it's like, oh,
But
now
that
I'm.
bothered
It
you?
didn't bother me at
I
all.
thought
Like,
that would be something where you're like, oh, that's actually really cool.
well,
You,
no,
you know, sorry for interrupting, but like, I see two different things here. Like, there's girls that think, oh my gosh, this is frustrating and annoying. He's always giving his mom a car. This guy's dead broke. Or it could be the other way where it's like, wow, this is really awesome. He cares for his mom. You know, he's really a good person.
well, so in my specifics, in that experience that I had, I loved being able to help because I felt like, oh, like sure, why not? And I loved his mom, so I was like, yeah, you need my car, just take it. And it wasn't even her wanting to take it. It was more of like, I don't have a choice. I don't know what to do. I don't have a car. I can call my friend to pick me up in the morning. And I'm like, you know what? It's cool. Like I have my car. I'm just gonna be at your house anyway. But my point with that whole situation was that my parents have always told me like, if you can avoid guys who are struggling, avoid guys who have a broken family, because whatever situation they have within their family, it's going to run onto you. And that was absolutely true because everything was a struggle in that relationship because their family was so broken that the way that he was raised, like he had a broken mentality too. So it's like me trying to go through all these things and all of these struggles and thinking it was normal and this is how a relationship should be like. But I was hurting myself trying to make the relationship work when it was just like broken altogether.
So, from what I'm understanding, is when you're dating someone who doesn't have money, doesn't have something working towards their future, it becomes a burden for you. And that burden is what your parents and every parent is saying to avoid. But what comes out from the parents is date someone, find someone with money, find someone with a good job. But what they don't say is that, hey, there's a burden to where now you also have to take care of that person and their family.
Yeah, pretty much. And after that experience, my mom was like, now do you understand? Like when I saw that you were with this guy, like my heart was broken for you, but I needed you to be able to experience that to learn from that and like know your value and find better.
Right.
If that makes sense. So it was a huge
Well,
learning
you
experience.
You did find better.
Did I?
What? Excuse me?
Yeah, that was rough. Like, I don't know, just thinking about it. The struggles that I went through in relationships, like.
So I wasn't a person that spent money on you, right? I wasn't rich and all that. And so you had experienced guys who did have the money. So I'm kind of like the in-between guy, right? The middle. I don't know. That had a little. I don't know. I was just in the middle of both those categories, and so I still want to I still want to know your experience of how it was dating someone who was rich.
I was gonna say too, like money is not the biggest factor when it comes to dating someone. Like
it's not. I just want to know what the lifestyle is like.
Yeah,
because I've never been rich, so I just want to be like, how does it feel to be pampered?
Because I've dated other people who didn't have money.
Yeah.
Or they had money, but they were so dumb. Like they were just like doing a lot of dumb shit and they didn't have the priority set. So it's like they can have money or not, but if they don't have a future, if they don't have goals, if they're not going out and being productive and trying to do things to like better themselves and to improve the relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if they have money or not. Like that relationship will not do well.
Did they ever pamper you?
I was pampered a lot.
Did you like it?
I mean, I did, but at the same time, I never
Was it
really
uncomfortable?
cared. It wasn't something that I was used to, I guess, because of seeing like how my family dynamic was. And I think it really comes down to like how you're raised also, because I wasn't used to seeing like my dad pamper my mom and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then for me, I didn't know how to receive it when I would get pampered. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like even until I started dating you and stuff, like I didn't really like to get massages. Like it was weird to me, and now I'm like in need of massages like on a monthly basis. So it's like things like that, you know. I don't know.
But we didn't get massages when we were dating. It was more of like when we were married and we're tired from all the hustling we're doing, and we're like, damn, I need a massage.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I felt like I was pampered a lot, but at the same time, it never impressed me. Like gifts never impressed me because I've dated people where they would constantly buy me things and give me things, but to me I was just like I appreciate it, but you don't have to do that to try to win my love
Mhm.
and really like to want to be in a relationship with me.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I did buy anything for you in the early part of the relationship, right?
I think you would get me little things like uh
Like I see guys buying girls like purses and like LV stuff and all these things. I never did any of that.
yeah. Well, I think because it also depends on the person too. Because for me, I'm like, money isn't that easy to come around
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, well, you want to spend like, I don't know, $10,000 on a purse and stuff. Like, although I might be like, oh, that's a gorgeous bag or this or that or whatever it is. I just wasn't always a materialistic person.
Is there any cons to dating someone who does have money?
Um, I mean, the expectations might be different because if you are dating someone who has money or is wealthy, like you have to make sure that you have the same mindset as them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, like you just have to match mentally, like on that financial level, if that makes sense.
Okay. So I have a question for this now. Um, if someone doesn't have money, what should they have?
What do you mean?
If someone doesn't have money, what are you looking for in them to be able to stay in the relationship with them? Because
Um,
there's always like there's a struggle. They're working towards their future,
right.
and sometimes people work towards their future forever and they never even get there. So it's like, at what point do you stop and be like, okay, this is too much of a burden for me. I don't see you going anywhere. Or are you like, I'm gonna just keep trusting this person forever?
So
Like so I'm trying to say, like, when is the right time for the girl to decide to move on or keep going?
I think it depends because if you have a woman that's there for you and they've been there with you through every struggle, they still believe in you, they try to encourage you, they try to support you. When it comes down to it, where you're too focused on everything else and you stop focusing on your partner and you don't treat them right, you forget to do things for them to show them that you appreciate and love them. I think that's when a woman is like fed up and they're like, okay, like I can't do this for you anymore and be there for you and deal with it if you're not treating me the way that I need you to treat me.
Was I the first guy you dated that actually had a business?
Um, no, not the first guy. Yeah, I've dated other people who had businesses or investments and stuff like that, but it always comes down to the way that a person is, their character, and how they treat other people, how they treat their family, and how they treat their partners. I feel like that is more important than um, financials.
Hmm.
As long as you're at least at the same level financially and you see that the person is trying and working hard and I think you can admire them for constantly trying even though it may fail at times, but they also have to be a good person.
I think you got lucky with me
Why?
because you weren't there when I was struggling and working 3 jobs and going to school. You weren't there when I was trying to save up for businesses. You came in when I had my first business, and from the time we were dating to getting married, I was now from my first business to my third business. And I just feel like you just came in at the right time.
Yeah, but I feel like I've seen you go through a lot of struggle too. And
How?
because you've gone through so many businesses, but there are also some that failed.
But
There
you
are a
didn't
lot
see
of
the fails.
downfalls.
You just saw the ones where it just kept getting better and better and better.
No, like with the liquor store,
Well, yeah, but that was after we were married.
but we were married like what, 2 years, two to three,
Yeah.
2 years
That was
after dating.
that was my third business and my first, I would say, fail.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was losing
It
money. It
was
just
your-
wasn't a success.
It was okay. It wasn't a success, but it was one of the harder businesses that you went through. But I went through that struggle with you for your
true
first
that.
business together. So for you to say I got lucky coming in, that shit was hard to
But
go through.
What I meant was that you went through that with me while we were married. That was prior to, in the beginning of our relationship, we weren't even there yet. So the struggle wasn't there. In the beginning of the relationship, you just saw that I had stuff going. And then when we got married, the real struggle came in. At that point, you're too far in. You're not divorcing me because I have a bad business.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. No, if you're gonna be in a relationship where you feel like your partner is gonna divorce you because you've had a failed business, then what is the relationship?
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know.
Have you ever go dig off someone?
Never. No.
What? How do you differentiate being a gold digger and just dating someone who has money and I don't know, they just buy you things randomly, give you things, they take you to all these nice places. Like, some people might say you are a gold digger when those things are happening and you're not even expecting any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you separate yourself from being called a gold digger when you're dating a rich person? Can you?
I don't know. I mean,
It's
I feel
hard,
like
right?
people are just gonna think that no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be a con from dating a wealthy person because you have so much to prove and so much to show each other and people are judging you.
Then what is gold digging?
I mean, gold digging is being in a relationship with someone and expecting them to constantly get things for you and to pamper you and buy you expensive things and wine and dine you. I don't know, but some women might have that standard and that might be the lifestyle that they live too, right? So that's why I say that you have to be financially compatible, because if you're with someone who pampers themselves already, who likes luxurious things and likes to spoil themselves, like, is it gold digging if they expect the same from their partner?
Yeah.
Right? Because if this is already your lifestyle, why are you going to downgrade your expectations and your lifestyle to be with someone, if that makes sense?
I say it took us a long time to really enjoy the fruit of our labors. You know what I mean? Like you said, we struggled so long on my liquor store business, and you went through that with me. And then from that, I just was like, hey, I don't want to work for a year. I need to like reset, and you were working. Like, I was pretty much a bum, and we were married. And, now we're like 10 years in, and, at 12 years or 11 years, I was like, I'm going to buy you a car. Now we got this nice house, and now we're actually spending money and enjoying all the stuff that we worked so hard for. And sometimes it's not like you expected the car or wanted the car. You're like, should we do this? And I'm like, why don't we worked so hard, let's enjoy it now.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, because like, for me, I've always been I'm gonna buy a used car. Like, that's my own thing. I don't care. I'm just gonna pay up front and just buy it, right?
I used to be like that too.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was very hard when we're like, yeah, why don't we just get a new car? I don't know, like it just wasn't something I thought about. And then, after working so hard and doing all the things that we've done and all the experiences we went through, it's like, okay, like it had to take a lot of convincing for you to tell me like, hey, why don't you just get a brand new car? And I'm like, I don't know. That's scary.
I mean, I definitely had to teach you about business and understand, things like that, because I wouldn't just buy a car a new car and just spend that money. It's like I've done things where, we have our business and I'm pouring out like 30K in taxes, every year. And I'm like, what is going on? This is way too much taxes. And now I'm understanding, well, hey, if you buy something that's tax deductible, like more investments, more cars, then you don't have to pay as much tax because it's getting written off. And so understanding that stuff actually is, I don't know, it's helping, right? But at a young age, you really don't understand that stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to have people who are on the same level with you, like financially, because you can both learn and grow together and understand these new things, right?
Yeah.
Like with what you're saying. Because, we have friends where uh their financial levels are different, right? And then you see that they struggle and they're trying to work on it, but they're at a point where they have to work so much harder just to be able to try to be at the same level because
Hmm.
one person is always trying to keep up with the other person. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it really just depends on who you get in a relationship with and their financial standing to be able to be on the same page, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. All right, so here's a question. Does the difference in income have an impact on the balance of the relationship?
I would say yes and no because I feel like every relationship is different. There are also some instances where, let's say nowadays, like a woman can be making more. She could be the breadwinner of the family,
Hmm.
right? And then the guy understands that, but the woman also understands it and she knows what she's getting into in that relationship. So there has to be like a way to balance it out. So if she's the breadwinner, she's making more, the man can be in the relationship providing for her emotionally and being there to support her. And I feel like that is okay if both are in agreement and if that works for them, and vice versa for men and women.
I feel like this is the hardest part because in the beginning, when there's true love, you believe in the other person. So if you are the breadwinner and you believe that the other person is going to eventually get there, you know, what happens when they never do?
um I mean, depends on how long you've been in the relationship and just the dynamic of it, how
Would you,
everything is going all together. Because if you've put in so much time and you've invested in things, then it's trying to figure out a way around it, I guess.
from watching movies, when it gets to that point, you always see the arguments and like, this is never going to work out. You're never going to get better. But for me, when I've put in so much work into that relationship and I see the other person and I know that they're never going to make it, for me, I would say, you know what? I'm okay with that because there was always that little parts of, well, what if it never happens for them? And, can you take care of them for the rest of your life? You know? And I think a lot of people have to also remember that. Like, if you believe in your partner, there's a chance that they might not get to where they want to. And are you okay with that struggle or taking care of them forever? You know?
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, and I think also in terms of being like at the same financial level, I think it comes, I don't know, I feel like it is important, what, not financially, like money wise, right? But I think more of like the mental state, because every relationship, like I said, revolves around money with spending, and it comes down to like spending habits with other people too. Because then
mhm.
if one person's making more and the other person's making less, one can be spending a lot less and be more conscious about money and stuff like that. So then it kind of like balances out at the same time.
Here's another question for you. And I don't know if you have an answer to this. How much money should men make?
um I don't know. I don't have like a minimum that someone should be making,
You
but
think you could ever be with someone like if you weren't with me, did you ever think that you could be with someone who could never make good money for you,
mm,
or was just never thought about?
honestly, I don't think so, just because at this age now, I feel like there has to be standards, And I'm not a teenager anymore. I can't just find anyone, and I have kids, right? So it's like, if you have to think about things like that, you have to think about the responsibilities.
I'm talking about before.
Before
Not
what? Are you talking about now, or like
no,
when?
like how much money should a man make when you're first dating them? Like, now it's too late. You're stuck with me.
Yeah,
We
I
have
was like,
kids,
what do
we're
you
married.
mean? I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
at
no,
an
no,
age
no,
where I
no.
cannot do that anymore. Like, I have to be
I'm
responsible.
not
and
telling you
have
to,
standards. I thought you meant currently now if I
Bro,
had to.
I am not telling you to think about other men right now in your life.
I was like,
Okay.
well, if you're asking me this, I have kids. I'm like older.
No.
That's what I was like, what do you
I'm
mean?
not telling you to fantasize about what it's like with other men right now.
You had me really thinking, like, what do I need to do, like, if I was in a situation? But
No.
so it
What the
depends.
fuck?
It's the way you ask the question.
Yeah, my bad. I don't know.
don't
I thought I
know.
was clear that we're talking about before me, or like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like how much money should men make when you're dating?
I don't know. It depends, and what the minimum wage is,
Like,
and
your advice to the girls out there: do you have a standard on the men? You know, do you think that they should make a certain amount, or like, what's your advice to those girls? Or like, it shouldn't matter.
it should matter to a certain extent, but I think it really depends on the person overall, how hard they're working, what their goals are. If they have a future, how they treat you, how they treat their parents, how they treat your family and their family, like, it all comes down to them as a person. And if they're responsible and you know that they can take care of themselves and that they'll be able to take care of you too, then I would say that's more important. But to put a number on like how much they should be making, it's hard to say because it's going to change no matter what.
So for me, when we were dating, and for me to go over the hump of, all right, do I have a future with you or not? Is this a person that I want to move forward with or not? I had to think about your future and your financials and everything to see how our life would be, in my head. So the way that I was able to say, okay, you're good for me, is that, one, our whole dating relationship, we're working a job.
Right.
So you're always making money for yourself, right? That's what you want to see. And then it went from you having a career and now having with the career the most money you've ever made. And so it wasn't like she makes this much money. It was more of she has a career and a good job.
Yeah.
Meaning that I can see the future, and that she's about to graduate college. I can see the future, like, so it's never about how much money should the girl make, how much money should the guy make. It was like, what do you see the capabilities of this person, and what are they doing now? Do you see them, like you said, bettering their life?
Yeah.
Have you seen improvements? And I think that was where I was like, okay, I do see all that, and let's go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't set like, oh, well, they're making this much money. We're good. Bottom line, it's how are their ethics?
Yeah, it's just
how hard do they work?
I'm only asking because you see these TikTok videos and these what do they call those experiences where social experiments?
Yeah.
When these guys ask these girls off the street and they're like, how much money should a guy make? And they're like, 100,000, 500,000, 70,000.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's like,
sometimes it's
why?
not realistic.
Why does it even matter to you guys when you answer these questions? How is that even a good answer?
I don't know. I think once you put a number on things, it changes the mindset a little bit more. So you have to, that's when maybe a person might be considered a gold digger if they're like, well, they got to be making at least like 200K to be able to date me. Then that's like, whoa, what else? What if they're a complete asshole, but they make 200K and they cheat on you and do all of these other things? Like, is that enough?
Like, what's the difference between a guy who's a waiter that makes 30K a year to someone who makes 200K a year and how they treat you? I feel like it's the same.
And nowadays, like, if there's a server or other people who are working at restaurants and stuff like that, they can still be making a lot of money, right? Because they probably get tips a lot, especially out here in Vegas. So it's like, do you really judge someone by the job that they have? even though they're making a lot of money, or are you respecting the hustle and you appreciate like how hard that they work and their
Would
work
you
ethic?
would you be okay if that person was a waiter for life?
I mean, it depends if that means they have more of a work-life balance, or if they're happier about it. They can still provide and still have time for you and the kids and whatever it
So
is.
you don't
Then
care what the person does as long as they're doing things
I
properly, balanced, right? I don't know.
I think if they're working hard, and they still take care of you and they treat you right, like I feel like that's a very important thing, because what if they're doing something else and they're very successful and they're making so much money, but they treat you like shit and they don't treat you right and they neglect you? Like, what would you rather have?
Okay, so here's my last question for you to give advice to the people out there is from what I'm understanding is you never cared about what someone made, how much money they had, but at the same time when you dated someone who gave you the baggage and the burden, like how do you find that perfect in between all that, and like what is your advice?
Well, I think actually that you don't look for a man or a partner to be able to take care of you financially. You should work more towards working on yourself,
I like that.
improving yourself, and making sure that you're able to take care of yourself. So if it ever comes down to it and shit happens and you don't find that person who can take care of you, you'll be okay because you know that you can take care of yourself. So I think don't go into a relationship looking to rely on another person. Like, you should be able to rely on yourself, and having another person in your life and being a partner for you, they should be able to complement you and support you in various ways to help improve the relationship. Because if that's not the case, why even be in a relationship? So, yeah.
I like that. What I got from that is find someone who can complement your life.
Yep.
And so that means to me has nothing to do with money. It does have to do with like, if there is a broken family that they have, it could be okay as long as they're complementing your life instead of creating the burden for you. So whatever situation you guys are in, a good situation, a bad situation, all that matters is how well your partner complements you in all categories.
Yep, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you're not happy in a relationship, or if you feel like there's a gap in that relationship, like, money is not going to be able to fill that for you, and like material things.
All right. So last question. Should you listen to your parents in finding a guy who has money?
I would say take it as you will. All parents are going to give you different advice. Some people might tell you to look for someone wealthy, or to just be a trophy wife, or to marry a doctor and whatever else and forget everything else. So it kind of depends on what your aspirations are and your goals are, and just take what they say with a grain of salt, and then
Here,
apply it to your own lifestyle and your beliefs and whatever makes you happy.
my final answer. Don't listen to your parents, but also listen to all the red flags that we just put out on this episode and find that in between.
Go with your gut, I think.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's never
Every
about money.
situation's
That's all we've come down to in this episode is it is not
Yeah.
about money.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're a gold digger out there, stop thinking about that, or I don't know. Never need to find a guy with money. Just find someone with good values.
I
Okay.
mean, if you're a
And
gold
that's
digger,
it.
you're gonna find people that are gonna just buy you things. So just, and there are guys that are okay with it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
do
there are
you.
guys okay
Do
with
you.
gold diggers. That's true.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yep,
All right, guys.
Sugar daddies.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you guys give us a like, follow, subscribe on all the podcast platforms: Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram. And we'll catch you guys next time on Love and Rice.